So, whoa, Nelly, let me tell you about Texas. So, first of all, voting has begun in Texas. So, we had a Texas candidate on in Rebel headquarters just now, and she explained you can go into the polls 7 to 7 every night, every day. Okay, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You could also do mail-in ballots, and the election goes through March 6th. That's the last day of voting, and then we find out who wins. So there's Beto O'Rourke, who's running on the Senate side, for the Senate seat on the Democratic side, and he is already a popular progressive Democratic congressman. Other folks say they're good progressives in that race too. Please do your own investigations, find out more about it. I've interviewed Beto O'Rourke a couple times. He's not a Justice Democrat, but before the Justice Democrats existed, before the movement started to stop taking corporate cash, Beto O'Rourke just unilaterally said, "I'm not taking PAC money." So that he deserves a world of credit for that. Okay, and I think he's going to beat Ted Cruz. So, but he'll probably easily win the primary. So that's the less interesting part for the primaries. In the general election, Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz is likely to be a super interesting race.
Oh, I hope he beats the hell out of Ted Cruz.
Oh, and I got some polling to show you that there's a good chance he will.
Oh, it's so exciting.
So,
really?
Yeah. Now,
imagine looking at the picture of him like sadly sitting there in front of his campaign thing on election day.
That white thing on his lip. Every time I think about him, I think about that white thing on his lip.
That would be great.
So, I mean, let us for the first time in 2018 whisper of a dream. Imagine on election night, we're announcing all across the country. We get to Kansas. Congressman Brett Welder has just defeated Kevin Yoder. The new representative from the 3rd District of Kansas, Brett Welder.
I just got goosebumps.
I know. And then then we go to Texas. If I get to play that soundboard, down goes Ted Cruz. Down goes Ted Cruz. I mean, I don't mean the way he did for Trump earlier. Okay. And I'm gonna have that picture flashing of him phone banking for Trump.
Yes.
Flashing all night, right? God damn, that would be amazing.
And then he loses anyway. Right?
Yes.
Right? So he did that with Trump, so he would make sure he got the base so he would win the next. And if he loses anyway and he still humiliated himself like that, that's when it's really fun.
Yeah, when he debased himself. Trump on Manu, man. What are you gonna do about it? Get back on the phones for Trump. Go ahead, Ted. Okay. So, by the way, Beto O'Rourke outraised them, all small dollar donations.
Yeah.
He outraised Cruz, who's taking nonstop corporate PAC money with small dollar donations. Okay, now let me show you the really interesting primaries, which are on the congressional side, on the House side. So let's go to graphic 6 here. So these are the Just Democrats in Texas, as you can tell. There's a lot of them. There's 7 of them. Okay, Derek Crow has been a fighter in progressive circles for a long time. Lindsey Fagan was just on Rebel headquarters today. She is worked in the tech industry for a long time. All these guys have establishment Democrats against them. Darnell Jones has been on. Everybody go check out youtube.com/TYT Politics to see these interviews. Adrian Bell, it's Rick Trevino, all these great people. But Laura Moser is the one that's been getting a lot of attention lately. Why? Now the story that we broke here on the Young Turks, and that, by the way, thank you again to all the people who contributed to our reporters because they broke the story, was the DCCC memo that was sent to all the candidates, and it asked them to do weird things like donate the great majority of their money to media, like to use most of their money in mainly television, but media overall. Now, why? Why can't I just run a grassroots campaign? Why can't I do whatever I want with my money? It's my money and my campaign, right? And then they gave him a list of consultants and said, you're only allowed to use these consultants. Why? Wait a minute, what if there's a consultant in Texas who's wonderful and knows the Texas or knows my district, et cetera? No, you must use these consultants who are friends and allies of ours, and some of whom we're married to, and some of whom we worked for before and will work for later. So that's a terrible, I mean, that memo is corruption defined in a lot of ways. Okay, then in what seemed to be a more innocuous part of the memo, although I think it's preposterous, is they said, now remember, no infighting in the primaries. First of all, that makes no sense. It's a primary. Well, how are we like?
It's a boxing match, no punching.
Okay, so that was already weird and irrational, right? But then what did they do to Laura Moser in Texas? The DCCC wrote an opposition memo about a Democrat in a primary. They only wrote 2 opposition memos so far. One is against a Republican and the other one was against Laura Moser. And then they released it publicly. Oh my God, what happened to not fighting during the primaries? They never meant it. It was all a lie to try to get progressives to unilaterally disarm. They were never gonna stop fighting. They were gonna pour their corporate PAC money in. They were gonna do every dirty trick in the book. And then they took an out of context quote that Laura Moser said about a different part of Texas, hundreds of miles away. And they're like, she hates Texas and she's disqualified herself from ever winning this race. What if she was the primary? Then the Republicans are gonna use that quote from the Democratic Party against her.
Yep.
If a progressive did that to an establishment candidate, they'd be like, what kind of a monster does this? Unity, right? But when it comes to fighting progressives, there's no unity. There's no reciprocity. All there is vicious smears. And then on top of that, because they are so deeply corrupt, they said, oh, she funneled some of the money to her brother, and they made it seem like her brother just took the money and went home with it. No, she showed that he spent all the money on the campaign.
Right.
Right? Meanwhile, they're directing money to their wives and husbands that are part of the memo, the consultants in the memo.
Right, and look, so there are obviously political differences here, but they also hated the fact that she didn't use the consultants that they wanted her to use, right?
Yes.
The same consultants that that love to take that campaign money and they make millions of dollars off these campaigns. So I love the fact that she didn't go with those consultants, and I love the fact that she's still fighting. And by the way, just to give you a few more details, that whole thing about taking her out of context drove me crazy. In addition to what happened with all the consultant stuff, she made a statement about how she likes living in big cities as opposed to small towns. She was comparing Paris, Texas, where her grandparents were from, to living in big cities, which she prefers. That doesn't mean that she hates Texas. It would be like me saying I prefer to live in Los Angeles as opposed to Bakersfield. Doesn't mean I hate California.
It's preposterous.
And Texas has several massive cities.
Yeah.
I would say in most people's, like I lived in Texas for more than 5 years. Lots of people live in the cities. It's not like, oh, rural Texas is the only Texas or anything like that. Like there's a huge Austin culture, huge Dallas culture. Houston is gigantic. It's insane to say that that's like elitist to prefer the cities in Texas.
Her district is in a giant city.
Yeah.
It's not in Paris, Texas. It's in one of the largest cities in the country.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I don't like Paris, Texas, because it's French.
That's what they'll say next. So now here's the good news part of that. And by the way, if you're watching this, we're doing this live election coverage, obviously. We'll do it on almost all the election nights. Tonight's the first night, Arizona's 8th district, that's why we're all here. Always check out on election nights, Tuesday nights, tytnetwork.com/live. But if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook, we'll put all those candidates' links down below, okay? So make sure you check out Laura Moser and all the other candidates in Texas and see if you can help them, okay? But which gets to my point. Within 48 hours of the DCCC attacking Laura Moser, she raised $60,000.
Boom.
Okay, so people are like, oh, screw you and your stupid consultants and your goddamn corruption. I'm going for Laura Moser. So it totally backfired. Not only that, she was a Justice Democrat all along. Progressive Change Campaign Committees like that's it, we're endorsing, okay? And a couple other groups, now Our Revolution, all right? They're like, no, that's it. Thank you for pointing out the real progressive in the race. We appreciate it, okay?
You could actually now have some progressive candidates around the country like, hey, DCCC, can you target me for a second?
They're so dumb, man. And Adam Green from PCCC said about DCCC on the show when we did that story on Friday. He's like, not only is it stupid in attacking a fellow Democrat, doing it so publicly, brazenly, ridiculously, but it's also counterproductive. How could you not see that that will help give her campaign energy? What's wrong with these people? And
And also in terms of like, if you totally ignored the corruption angle of having this predetermined list of consultants that we want you to go with if you're running here or whatever, it's not just on the state level. It's not just corrupt. It's also stupid because in Texas is a place where we expect that at some point, they've been saying for 5, 10, 15 years, at some point this is going to flip because of changing demographics and people's values are changing and everything, and yet it hasn't. Okay, if we just keep going with the same people who have gotten close but haven't been able to actually seal the deal and flip it, maybe that's a recipe to never actually flip it. Maybe if we mix things up and try experiments in different congressional districts, don't go with the same ad people in every single place, then maybe you can actually win some of those instead of going with a flawed strategy that has, up until this point, continued to lose.
Yeah, and last two things about it. One of the Democrats that they're backing against her is a former Goldman Sachs banker.
Oh, yay.
Of course. Now look,
Texas.
You need banks. You need banks. How else are you gonna do? You gotta build things.
Yeah. I hear there are good banks in the world. Anyway, so I don't know which one I'm talking about though. There's not any water. Okay, all right. So seriously though, look, some of the progressive candidates running against other Democrats, all those Democrats aren't terrible people, and I don't know the guy from Goldman Sachs, and maybe he's a good guy, and et cetera, right? But we do know who is uncorrupted, right? And he is taking plenty of corporate PAC money, and the other Democratic establishment people in that race are, and so they've now targeted a couple of different Justice Democrats. The DCCC has, Democratic Party has. That's not a coincidence. The reason they target them is because they won't take corporate PAC money. So then the DCCC goes, well, if you're not going to use our consultants and you don't take corporate PAC money, how the hell are we going to make money? How are me and all my friends in Washington going to make money? So you win, you lose. What do I care?
Also,
what do I get out of it?
Also in the Moser race, keep in mind that the Goldman Sachs candidate that's running against her in the primary openly said to the media that he was approached by the DCCC and they convinced him to run. I mean, that should say something to you.
Yeah.
And Laura's been running the whole time, and they're like, yeah, that's why we got to get her out. Not, hey, we're worried about losing,
right?
But we got to get her out because that's a progressive, and that could, because guys, remember, if Bernie and progressives and uncorrupted candidates win, and you stop the money in politics, to unfortunately a lot of Democrats in Washington, that's not good news. That means that's the end of the gravy train. Whereas if Trump wins or bad guy Republicans win, they send you annoying emails telling you, oh, you got to donate to us. You got to donate to us. The boogeyman's out there.
Yeah.
So they might even make more money that way.